Hello mamas, Laura here, and today we are chatting about tummy time and the best ways to incorporate this into your day and to prevent the flattening of your baby's head. Enjoy!
Hey mama, I'm sending you wonderful pregnancy vibes. It's time for you to guide you through. Let's take some time for you. It's Pregnancy with Physio Laura.
Hello mamas and welcome back to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast. Today we are kicking off with episode 2 in our Kids Physio Series, diving into the best ways to include tummy time in your day, which, hint hint, is not necessarily putting your baby on their tummy on the floor all the time. And we also chat about flat heads and the best strategies to prevent this from occurring. So this is episode 2 of a 5-part Kids Physio Series with the incredible Nicole Pates, our titled pediatric physiotherapist. And if you haven't already listened to episode 1 in this series, please go back and give it a listen when you can, because we do talk about the importance of play when it comes to achieving baby milestones, and this includes tummy time. And it is so important to enjoy this process with your baby rather than feeling like it's a task that you need to complete each day. Now, there is so much amazing information coming up in this Kids Physio series. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast so that you do not miss out. And in the next few episodes in this Kid Physio series, we'll be covering crawling and the realistic expectations around when this should occur and the different ways in which your baby may begin to crawl, the absolute down low on baby carriers, and whether or not baby toys and activity centers are helpful or harmful. Now remember, we also have 4 bonus videos exclusively available to members inside the Pregnancy Posse, where Nicole talks us through different play ideas for babies aged 0 to 3 months old. Now this entire podcast series and all our other podcast series, along with any exclusive member-only bonus podcast content, is all live right now inside the Pregnancy Posse. So if you'd love to access all the bonus content and listen to or watch this entire podcast series right now, rather than waiting for future episodes to come out, then please do go and check out the Pregnancy Posse. I have taken my years of experience helping pregnant and postnatal women as a women's health physiotherapist and made this accessible to every wonderful woman online inside the Pregnancy Posse. So when you join the posse, I will personally guide you week by week through your pregnancy with safe weekly workouts tailored to your exact week of pregnancy. I also do a weekly Q&A session where I answer any of the amazing questions from our posse members. And there is a beautiful community forum where you can ask any of your questions and get support from other women on the same journey. We also have a beautiful resources library which covers every topic you need to know so that you can avoid the dreaded Google rabbit hole. Now, I would love to help you have a healthy, active, pain-free pregnancy. So just head over to thepregnancyposse.com to see what the Pregnancy Posse is all about. Now, let's get into episode 2 of our 5-part Kids Physio series. Let's take the pressure off traditional tummy time protocols and instead learn new and playful ways to enjoy this with your children. Enjoy.
Let's go into the big milestones now because we can't ignore them. That's what everyone wants to know about.
Yes.
The first one that we're often focused on as parents is tummy time. It's drilled into us, tummy time, tummy time, tummy time. So I know that you have maybe a slightly different view on tummy time than, as you mentioned before, it's not all about the minutes that you rack up. Could you maybe talk us through your, thoughts on tummy time, why it's maybe not the be all and end all, and how mums and dads can incorporate tummy time into their routine when it's maybe not as enjoyable? Because I know a lot of listeners wrote in to say, how do we do tummy time if my child hates it? If my child doesn't like it, they don't want to be there. So I'm sure you get this a lot, but could you unpack that for us?
I definitely can. So I get this question a lot about how do I help my baby to tummy time? And I think the first step is adjusting our expectations of what tummy time is. So tummy time, a lot of parents feel is being flat on the floor, and that's tummy time. And that, we see all these pictures of babies that have just been born and their heads are up and they're looking around. And really, newborns, if they are flat on their floor, they'll be like head turned to the side, pretty placid, and that is normal. Some babies won't be wanting to be put on the floor, A, because it's cold, B, they want to be on you because they've been in the womb, and they're just not comfortable down there, or they want to be on you and feeling that warmth. And so our expectations of tummy time need to shift so that tummy time can be on us, on our chest. And I think if we understand why tummy time was introduced. So tummy time was introduced as part of the SIDS Back to Sleep campaign. So SIDS Back to Sleep campaign, which is super successful, came into play about 1991, 1992. And what we discovered from that was a lot of babies were, because of this fear around putting babies on their tummy to sleep, lots of bubs were spending a lot of time on their backs and were getting misshapen heads and tightness in their necks and things like that. And so they introduced tummy time to be a counteract to that, to try and prevent that. However, really the purpose of tummy time is just to spend less time on your back. So you can do that on you can do it in a carrier, you can do it over your arm, you can do it on your legs, you can do it anywhere, as long as you can do it, you can be inside lying rather than on their tummy. And there's some really lovely research that's being done at the moment about it's not like motor development is not just about tummy time, but it can also be the way you're holding and moving baby to help their muscles and their body systems experience different planes of movement and different, what we call in the vestibular, in your ear, like that different sense of being and sense of body awareness. And so instead of just, we picking our baby up flat or to the side, like we can add in some rotation and things like that, which is helpful as well. So it doesn't have to be the be all and end all tummy time, but if we adjust those expectations, it really takes the pressure off of, oh my God, my baby's just been born, I put on their tummy, they don't like it. That's okay. It's totally normal. You can do lots of other different things. And then, or you might be like, I'm not even ready to try that. Like, I just need to get feeding and they're not even awake. My baby sleeps. Look, that's okay. Like you just start it as soon as you feel ready. Babies are really adaptable. And so and then I find when they are ready to do tummy time, if they aren't super keen to go on the floor straight away, you can almost progress them down through incline, whether it be yourself or a wedge. Or one lady asked me, like, is a pillow unsafe? And I think as long as you're super, like tummy time on a pillow inclined, I think as long as you're supervising and you're there with baby, and obviously tummy time is going to be a little bit more fun if you're like interacting with them face to face because they love your face. So whether it's on your chest or whether it's you getting down on the floor, and then lots of mums, Laura, say, oh, I can't get down on the floor because of my pain or other things. But it doesn't have to be on the floor. They can be on the bed or the change table. You don't have to get down to them. You can bring them up to you. It's just a firmer surface can sometimes help. But even one lady will say, I put them on a towel and the towel was too scratchy, change it to a nice rug. And that's where those little nuances that are individual to your baby really come out, if that makes sense.
I love that. I'm thinking that we should petition, instead of calling it tummy time, to call it not on your back time.
Well, if you think about that's why it came from, and because bubs are being left on their back, then they didn't get any opportunities to explore. But it's hard when you're introducing a campaign that saves so many lives, but then there's kind of a fear around putting your baby on their tummy as well, not just for sleep, but regular day-to-day things like that. Like some parents have that anxiety because of the SIDS campaign, and the SIDS campaign is wonderful, but I think when you're worried about something as a parent, your bub picks up on that too. And so that's why I think sometimes it's a more gentler way to start on you so that you can feel them and you can be there with them.
Yes.
If you
I was just thinking about a friend and I were joking the other day, but I can now go back to her and reassure her that she did a lot of tummy time and she did all the right things with her first. Now she's got her second and she forgot about it. And we were joking about, sometimes, when you're cooking dinner and baby's on your shoulder, it lifts its head back and looks around. But from what you're saying, that's a legitimate exercise.
Yeah, definitely. Over your shoulder. Yep. Over your shoulder, on your chest, over your arm, carrying it around. They're all tummy time. It's all tummy time. Yeah. Tummy time.
Yes, not on your back time.
No.
Awesome. Flatheads and tightness, which sometimes tie into it. Now, I know this is a big cause of anxiety for a lot of parents, and I imagine it. I've not had this experience, but I imagine it's because of the aesthetics. I don't know. You'd be able to give us a bit more insight. But What do we need to be mindful of as parents to prevent flat heads in the first place? And if we do start to notice that their head is a little bit misshapen, or, something just doesn't seem quite right, what sort of tips and tricks would you be giving parents as a first starting point to try and manage this a bit better?
Yeah. So, well, their heads are really moldable to begin with, especially in that first 2 to 3 months. And actually some of them come out pretty funny shapes. That's, so we don't actually consider it to be a flat head or a misshapen head until after about that 6-week period anyway, because sometimes the way they'll position in utero or something, the way they came through the birth canal, there's the canal, there's different things can influence that. So, but as I said, the back to sleep, putting our bubs back to sleep, and it's really interesting. I was talking to a lady that's doing a PhD, but I'm not sure if the results have been published yet, but a lot of the focus they're good sleepers and they might get a flat head, but that's not necessarily true. And I always say to parents, we can't really, when you put them to sleep, you can put their head one way and then head the other way, which can help because you're putting their heads to each way. If you notice that one way is harder or they don't like turning their head to one way, then that's kind of an idea of, okay, well, maybe we need to, that's something they need to be able to turn their head both ways, basically. So one might feel a little bit tighter or they might just fall back, and that's something that I would say at that point in time, no matter how young they were, I would be focusing on making sure that we're doing one after the other, and they respond really quickly early on, the little bubs, when you pick it up that early. So that's one thing that you can do first off, is try to remember, but when you're feeding and you're sleeping and everything else, sometimes you don't even think about which way their head's facing until 6 weeks. That's okay too, because you've just got to do what you need to do to get through. But what I was going to say is, we don't focus on what they're doing in the sleep time, because there's no point in you waking up every hour to switch their head back if they're sleeping. Focus on what you're doing in the daytime, and what you can do in the daytime is provide their head with lots of different movement, looking one way, looking the other way, through positioning either on you or in your arms, or the way you pick them up, so rolling them to the side and picking them up rather than just picking them up flat all the time. And so there's different ways that you can give them different opportunities to experience head movement and develop the muscle strength around their neck, and focus on the daytime rather than the sleep time. And that's something that's coming out, is that the more variance they have in their movement early on from the way we hold them and carry them, the better they respond, and the less likely that flat head stuff is going to happen. But yeah, you're right. I think it's the aesthetics of the flat head, because you can see it and people comment on it, especially around the 4-month mark, when bub starts being more upright. So when you start to try and sit them on your knee, because around 3 months they develop this ability to keep their head, if you tip them to the side, they'll keep their head up. That happens around the 12-week post 40-week gestation mark, so around 3 months, depending on when bub was born. And so when they start doing that, and you start to prop them in your lap a little bit more when you're out and about, that's when you start to notice the flattening, whereas when they're on their back on the floor, you don't see that as much. So if you do feel like there's something interesting happening with your baby's head shape, I always encourage taking a photo, looking down at the head, and because you're so sleep deprived, so if you take once a week, you'll see what's happening with their head. And also go through your camera roll, you take heaps of photos of our babies. Are they always facing to the left in your camera roll? If they are, then let's start moving their head to the right, because there's obviously a preference there. So there's some things you can do really early to help. And the other thing is, I really like carriers for helping with head preferences. So if you know that your baby prefers turning left, having them in the carrier and trying to get that nice stretch, turning with their head the other way, is a really lovely way to give them a prolonged nap with a stretch with their head, where they can't flick back if it's in the day. So I really like that for that as well. But yeah, if you know after that 6 mark, if it's still flat and you're noticing the flatness, the earlier you seek help, the easier it is to manage. Even if it's just changing some things up in the way you hold carry, or position bub or something's around the house. And sometimes bubs have a tight neck muscle, which is a little bit harder, and you have to do a little more intense physio on. But yeah, the earlier you pick it up, the earlier it is to treat. So as soon as you notice something, it's much easier to check in and fix it early than sort of wait and see approach.
That's great advice. And I did have a listener write in to ask, can this affect breastfeeding? I think they were referring mostly to if they had like an asymmetrical tightness in their neck. Is that something you would notice when you're feeding one side versus the other?
Yeah, so you can. So the tightness, there's different. So bub can have tightness in their neck for different reasons. One is position in utero. Some mums lack fluid or have less fluid in their uterus through pregnancy, and so there's less room for bub to move. Or there might be twins, or narrow pelvis, like anything that means that there might be a huge bub. Anything that means there might be smaller space would be a flag for me to think, oh, do I need to check their neck and their hips and their feet as well? Or sometimes when if it's a long pushing stage, or if they've spent a lot of time through, or even some of the bubs who are born by C-section, like they might get stuck, and like, I don't know why, but some people in my family, anyway, they get stuck, their babies are up nice and high. And so if there's anything in terms of how baby's born, to check their neck, because sometimes, and this is the other thing, I get really frustrated when they're like, oh, it's my fault because of the birth of my canal, and I'm like, no, it's not your fault. Like, babies are really adaptable. You can't change a baby's spine, all we can do is give them equal movement to both, experience both sides of movement. But sometimes they come out and they are tight in one neck, which makes it hard to rotate the other way, to turn the other way, and that might make breastfeeding difficult. Or they might just be generally tight, which might mean that they have trouble opening and extending their neck, and with latch and different things like that. So physios can be really helpful and powerful in that space of assessing just movement around there, and not just by turning their head, but we spend a lot of time like this as a baby, but also the lovely opening, and that's why tummy time is great, because they when they start to lift their head, they're stretching through there, but we can get that through laying them across our lap and giving them nice head support to stretch out that neck as well. So it's just giving them that opportunity to, if they've been like this all the time, can we get them a little bit more like that? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think the theme coming through is what you're saying, which is a philosophy I share with pregnant women as well, is variety of movement is so important. So I always talk about mums move in one plane, which is like bend down, come back up, bend down, come back up. And that's why extension stretches feel wonderful, because how often do you do that as a mum? Hardly ever. It's always forward motion. So I think when it comes to balancing everything out, it's just about variety of movement. There's no one specific way that is perfect. It's just, changing it up regularly. So I love that.
Hey mamas, Laura here. I really hope you now have a different appreciation for quote unquote tummy time. Rather than feeling like it is another task to add to the ever-growing list of things that we should be doing as parents, you can now think of it as off your back time, which I find is much easier to include in your day and much less pressure around it. I also hope that Nicole's philosophy around play and enjoying the development of your children is really starting to resonate, so that you don't worry about their growth, but you instead enjoy this time with them. Now, if you'd love to learn more from Nicole, you can find her on Instagram at Nicole_Kids Physio. And as always, I would love to hear from you over on my socials at PhysioLaura, and let me know what your favorite learning was from this episode. And if you also prefer thinking of tummy time as off your back time instead. Now, in the next few episodes of this Kids Physio series, we will be chatting with Nicole about crawling and the realistic expectations around when this should occur, and the different ways in which a baby may begin to crawl. We'll also be discussing baby carriers and whether or not baby toys and activity centres are helpful or harmful. So if you haven't already, just subscribe to the Pregnancy with Physio Laura podcast, that you don't miss out on our upcoming episodes in this amazing series. And if you loved today's episode and you want to watch the next 3 episodes in this Kids Physio series, you can find this entire series along with every other podcast series we've ever done right now inside the Pregnancy Posse. So for most series of the podcast, we also record bonus content for members only. And in the bonus member-only episode for this Kids Physio series, Nicole shares with us 4 bonus videos demonstrating play-based ideas for babies aged 0 to 3 months. And inside the Pregnancy Posse, you'll also find our beautiful weekly guided pregnancy workouts, an extensive resources library which covers labor and birth preparation, pelvic floor exercises, and managing pregnancy aches and pains, plus a wonderful community forum and weekly Q&A sessions. I would love to help you have a wonderful pregnancy, birth, and postnatal experience. So just visit thepregnancyposse.com to see what the Pregnancy Posse is all about and to trial it for 7 days. I will catch you soon for episode 3 in this 5-part Kids Physio series, where we'll be chatting about the crawling milestone, realistically when you should expect your child to start doing this, and all the weird and wonderful ways in which they may start to move. But until then, mamas, sending you wonderful pregnancy vibes and enjoy the incredible journey that is pregnancy.